to another episode of the Ma's House podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Begun, and I'm here with our current artist in residence, Sen Mendez.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been I can feel the storm coming through. I wish it was going to be snow, but I think it's just going to rain. And, yeah, I want to talk about snow later on in the podcast because yesterday I went to, it was like Christmas in the Hamptons in town, and I went 2 years ago. And this year it was so extravagant. They had a snow machine.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen one in person before. But yeah. So, can you tell us a little about yourself and your art? Yeah.
My name is Sen Mendez. My pronouns are they, them. I am a non-binary Indigenous with lineages of Otomi, Nuapipil, interdisciplinary artist, cultural practitioner, entrepreneur, and educator deeply rooted and born in Huichin Ohlone Territory, also known as Oakland, California.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're from the West Coast.
Yes.
How often do you visit New York? Or is this your first time?
This is my first time visiting.
Wow.
Yes.
How do you like it so far?
I love the countryside of Shinnecock. My family in Central America are also from the country, so it feels very much at home for me.
Have you been to the city yet?
I am going to the city tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So I'll be there for 2 nights.
That's exciting. You have any plans so far?
Eat food.
Eat food there? Yes. I have been in the city way too much these past month.
Really?
Every weekend I've had to go for a birthday party or an event. And so I've always wanted to live in the city. But now that I'm a little older, I'm like, God damn, this city sucks. Driving the city, the worst.
Okay.
Trying to get around. I mean, you're going to enjoy the city,
yes.
Of course. You got to go to Times Square for sure, just because
Okay.
it's what everyone does. See the sights. There's some good food there, of course. You're going to have to trust a street vendor, see what happens.
Yes. I have all the recommendations. Oh, and please, if you have any additional ones, let me know.
I have the only recommendations actually for here, if you haven't gone to Tate's Bake Shop before you go.
Okay. What should I get?
Cookies. Yeah, well, they're around the nation now. Those green cookie bags.
Yeah, they're my favorite.
The real stores over right in town.
Oh, they make fresh cookies?
Yeah, they make them fresh. They're very different, but still the same. They're
I'll ask Jeremy to take me before I go.
They're the best. Okay. So can you describe your art and what you make?
Yeah. My primary discipline is printmaking, which is also known as block printing, lino cut. But I am a multidisciplinary artist, so I do paintings, illustrations. In the last 2 weeks while I've been here, I've been exploring beadwork, which I really love. And so a lot of my work really addresses the themes of decolonization, ancestry, migration, gender justice, disability justice, and mental health. From a personal creative standpoint, my practices come from embracing my identity as a first generation trans non-binary person, and using visual arts through storytelling. But my artistic practice as a facilitator and cultural practitioner is really through employing visual storytelling through block printing by creating a space for community engagement with the intersections of LGBT, QIA+, Indigenous, disabled, refugee, and immigrant individuals, and anyone who doesn't fit in those boxes as well. So I really take that seriously when I'm doing my art practice as a facilitator of your legacy workshops, to really create this very vulnerable and safe space for people to really explore stories they've held inside of themselves that they may or may not share with others.
That's actually going to be one of my questions later on, to talk about that. It's very interesting. You already got to it. Well, do you have a favorite medium? Because I know you have so many.
Currently, I'm sticking to block printing, but I will say in the last 2 weeks, my favorite medium has been beading.
Really?
Yes. As you can see, this small patch, I've completed a lot.
Wow. Yeah, it's honestly amazing how far you've been able to go in beading in 2 weeks, considering I've spent over a year now doing beading workshops almost every week. It takes me 3 hours to do anything. That would take me 14 hours at least.
Yeah.
Just for the Ma's house part up there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will say right now my favorite is beading, and I'm kind of like ready to finish that.
I'm probably going to say this wrong, but I saw you use linoleum paint. LINOLEUM paint.
Oh, linoleum.
Linoleum paint. Yeah, what is that?
So linoleum is the type of medium that is often used when we're doing lino cuts, lino block printing. That's the block that is usually carved out of in the practice, and the results of it is like the final image that comes out. The paint, block printing ink varies, from like water-based soluble paint to oil-based ink, to other kind of in-betweens of that. And it's really important to really understand what type of ink is best for you in your practice, and also the paper is essential too. So I've noticed using water-based ink with like maybe a softer linoleum. Usually it's kind of described as like speedy cut linoleum or like rubber block. I've realized the combination of that with water-based ink and mixed media paper is beautiful. So it's really just kind of like exploring and really experimenting with like the different inks and paper and textures of your block that will help you blend and make a bold print. Because oftentimes folks will use maybe like grayscale linoleum, which is a much harder material, and they'll use like maybe water-based ink with regular block printing paper, and it'll come out a little blotchy. It won't come out as clean as you could without a roller press. So it really depends on like the paper and block and ink that you use. It's very, very particular.
Yeah. It sounds advanced, honestly.
Oh,
it
yeah.
takes a lot.
Yeah. I've been practicing this medium for the last 6 years. And so having 6 years of experimenting really is still a process.
How did you get into block printing?
Yeah, that's a great story. I actually learned block printing through a art dinner that I usually had with friends at the time in 2016, 2017. And so my friend was already practicing block printing as their own medium, and I was doing illustrations and stuff at the time. And I had asked them, I was like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? I'm very interested. I'm intrigued. So they taught me the process, and they had grayscale linoleum. And the thing with grayscale linoleum is very, very hard. So when you carve into it, it could be very difficult. But the trick is you could either have a heating pad under it to warm up the material, or you could toast it on the stove.
Really? Oh.
You want the back part face down on the stove, not the gray part, because it'll melt. But it essentially loosens and makes the material more malleable for easy carving. So when I did my first carving, I was like, oh, okay, I still have prints of my first carving, but wasn't the best. But I kept going, and for a whole year, I just continued to practice on my own. And then from there, I actually joined a cohort back in San Francisco. They have a program for LGBT youth called Queer Ancestors Project, led by Kate Gilman. And so she would host, various LGBT youth and teach them this process as well. And she knew I already had like a little bit of experience, a year prior experience. But she was like, I think it would be great to have, folks who have experience, folks who doesn't, to be in the same space. And then from there, that's kind of really put me on the map as an artist. And so I'm really grateful for that kind of one moment in this cohort that really put me on the map and got me known later, now as a printmaker.
Interesting how that type of stuff works. So just go to an event and
Yeah.
everything works out somehow.
Exactly.
So I have done wood block printing before. We had an artist, and that was one of their workshops. They taught people how to do it. And the tools were very difficult to like carve anything that I actually wanted, like properly, how I wanted to look. But everyone else, or it seemed that she was amazing at it. She was able to do whatever she wanted. Like she was just drawing. It was crazy. I was wondering, are the tools the same as like wood block print?
So I actually saw the tools, the leftover tools.
Oh yeah, they're somewhere around here.
Yeah. So they're actually, one would say they're the same. One would say they're a little different. Again, it really depends on the material you're using, the type of lino block you're using, right? And so for the wood block tools, carving tools, that would be great for the gray linoleum. One that I mentioned that was a little bit harder versus the carving tools I have, which are specifically for block printing. They're a lot easier to handle, a lot more accessible, and when I mean accessible, they're a lot like affordable, and they're more compatible with the rubber blocks that are like a lot smoother material, very easy to carve, gives you less resistance. So
can you just give us a little overview of how your art career started, or when you got into art, how you got to this point at Ma's house?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I was telling Jeremy, it's such a wild journey because when I had reached out to Ma's house, it was beginning of this year, 2023, and I had made a commitment to myself, a promise to myself. I said, okay, this year, 2 feet down into my art. I'm not working for nobody. I'm not doing a full-time job. And my art is like, my art is my full-time job. So leading here, I guess, a little bit what I mentioned earlier, doing art practice, joining the cohort. And that's kind of, the cohort really helped jumpstart where I am now. I felt inspired to use block printing as my work. So in 2018, I was given an opportunity to sign up for a small grant where I can create an art practice or art workshop servicing immigrant refugees in the Bay Area community, using artwork to deal with mental health and wellness. And from there, that's where your legacy workshop was born. And so since then, I've been doing that since 2018. Took a break in 2020, of course, with the global pandemic. 2020, I did a fundraiser drive with artists and community to give 80 free art kits to families who are in need of creative relief since we're all stuck home. And then from there, I kind of went into like huge collaborations. I had my work shown in France in 2021. Wow. I didn't go to France, but my work was there.
Part of you was in France, though.
Yeah. So I got published, and then just so many kind of small things happened from my very first time learning block printing at a dinner to now. And I'm just really extremely grateful for like the entire journey that's kind of transformed from now to then. But yeah, so did that. I've been doing my workshop for 5 years now. I just finished my 5th cohort of my workshop. So we did a 8-week cohort of LGBT individuals, adults. So my workshop is mainly for adults, but I also offer it for youth and for other communities as well who request it. So I would say this year has been really fruitful. I've been able to collaborate with Moments Cooperative, which I'm now a member with. We did pop-ups all year that kind of brought me opportunities to do my workshop with a group of transgender elders in San Francisco. So they got to do the workshop as well.
That sounds like an extremely interesting workshop.
Yeah. And then I did it at Berkeley Public Library, back in home. And, and I got to do it here at Ma's house Friday. So it's just really sweet to kind of finally do something that I always wanted to do, essentially like a workshop tour or art tour. So it's really nice to have New York on the map of where your legacy has been.
So I unfortunately missed the workshop. My car battery exploded. But my aunt Denise, the workshop coordinator here at Ma's house, sent me so many pictures, and it looked like so many people had fun. So it seemed like it was a great success.
Yes,
so
it was.
It worked out, even though I didn't get any videos. So mad, but happens. Oh well. Okay, well, we kind of just got your journey of how you got here, but how did you hear about Ma's house?
Yeah, that's a great question. My two-spirit friend, shout out to Mason J. Smith. They shared the call out for artists to apply. And it was a specific call out for Bay Area artists. It was like a collaboration between a Bay Area group and Ma's house, early January 2023. And I was like, oh, I'm eligible. I qualify. And again, I'm like, this is the year, put 2 feet down. So I applied in January. Literally maybe like a week or two later, Jeremy messages me like, hey, let's meet. I'm like, great. This is quick. I'm usually waiting for months. And I got the green light to come. And so I have literally been like slowly preparing for this trip since January. Wow. Now we're in November.
Geez, it keeps hitting me that we're basically in December. Like, it's already Christmas. I turned on the car today. Santa's coming tonight. Whatever song was playing, I was like, Jesus Christ, what is happening? We barely finished. We just had Halloween like last week. What's happening now? One thing I have noticed that all the artist residents, Jeremy's made such a streamlined process that I feel like that really helps with getting people here, because we have a lot of artists in residence because it's like we have one for 2 weeks, and we have like a couple days break, and then someone else shows up, and everyone gives the same. Yep, Jeremy called me like the next day, and then,
he's very on point. Yeah. He reminds me of me. Like, I'm the same way. If I get an email or a message or something, I respond almost immediately.
I did notice that when I was messaging you on Instagram, which I appreciate, but I am also the worst when it comes to that. Takes me a long time. Yeah,
I work a lot. This year has been a result of a fruitful and lucrative for my art business and art practice, and so I work from my phone all the time. So I'm always checking my email, always checking my phone, like maybe every few hours. So it's very easy for me to like hit respond. And
I don't know what it is about myself when currently I have 100 unread messages.
Oh my god!
And these are people that I like talk to, and I'm just gonna have to get back to them eventually.
Yes.
I don't know what it is about. I'm just like, I look at it, I'm like, I read it. It's the ADD. I just like start doing something else and I don't respond. And I don't even know how many messages I've read now didn't respond to by mistake because I looked at them. So I guess I'll never truly know. And then I feel bad. I'm like, oh man, this guy hasn't texted me in so long. What are they doing? I look, I'm like, oh my god, I have 3 missed texts from them. Sorry. Oh, wow. And then I'm like, hello, are you still there? Can we still be friends, please? Sorry about this. Okay. Back to the interview. So, how would you say your way of making art changes from when you're on a residency rather than when you're at your own art studio, your own home, wherever you make art?
That's a good question. I felt like, this is my second residency I've done throughout my entire career, which is hard to believe. 6 years doing this stuff. and this is my second residency I was invited to. I will say, compared to the first residency, I had a longer time, so I had like a 3-month.
Oh, wow.
But it was at home, so it was very easy for me to like go to the studio space and come home and such. And then at that time I was working on my workbook. So I'm actually in the middle of creating a workbook for my workshop. And so I've had so much time to work on that. Whereas here it's a little more time constraint, of course. I have 2 weeks of being here. And so I will say like the first week I felt super motivated to like push out art, kind of get to know folks here in Shinnecock Nation, and specifically meeting up with your mom and visiting the Shinnecock kelp farmers kind of own studio, own laboratory. That was really fun. And so I felt like for me here, there was like this huge urgency to like put out art and make art, and I felt so motivated. And then I would say like maybe earlier this week, I was like, I just shut down for like a few days because I was like, oh, I'm tired and it's really cold here. So I kind of like allowed myself to like hibernate for like 2-3 days and just stay in my room and come out to eat or use the bathroom or whatever. But I will say I think in those 3 days I just allowed myself to just rest and enjoy the land and enjoy like being here and just being able to see so much nature, and then hear the chickens by my window and just enjoy myself. So I do feel like there's such a difference in practice here versus maybe if I was at home. So like here, I will say like that urgency helped me create 3 different bodies of work. So 2 multi-layer prints and then 1 beaded, project. Something that might have taken me a lot longer if I was at home. So I probably would have taken like maybe 3 months instead of like 2 weeks.
And yet you're still able to get all that done. That's one thing that's great about Mom's house is no one's like bothering you to like, oh, you didn't do 4 hours of work today. Like we want everyone to be able to rest because in a way it's kind of like a retreat around here. We can relax, especially artists from the city life. It gets very, I feel like at first it's like the quiet's kind of weird, but
I love the quiet.
Yeah, then that's surprising. I'm surprised you like the quiet.
Yeah,
a lot of artists tell me like it's too quiet. Like it is very quiet here, but
no. The quiet again. My family's from the countryside,
true.
So it's very home for me. I do live in the city. It's too loud, and so sometimes I have to close my window. Thankfully, my windows are insulated enough to block out the noise from outside, but it's not insulated enough to keep the cold out. So I have to deal with that. But it's nice to have peace and quiet, and it's also nice to just be around nature and experience winter and fall on this side of the country. I never have. I've only experienced like artificial fall.
Yeah, I love fall so much. I like the fall and winter, although like summer, spring are great, but I don't know, something about the fall and winter time for me. It's just I like the snow a lot. Although now that I like drive as an adult, now that I have to like drive and like at places in the snow, don't like it as much. Okay, but when I was a kid, and still to this day, if it's like snowing out, I'm like, oh, this is great. Which is why I was like so taken aback yesterday. I'm at the freaking Southampton town, and it starts snowing, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, it's the first snow of winter. Nope, I looked to my right, it's a damn ice snow machine. I'm like, is this really how rich these people are? Like they got a snow machine going off right now.
That's how it is back home too.
Yeah, and then they had a giant parade, which we missed because we were just late, and then they had the tree lighting, and then the mayor of the town was like, we have a surprise, everybody. Look to your right. Then they had this giant fireworks show, like immediately, and I'm like, "What is going on?"
What was this?
It was right. It was like 4 minutes away from here.
I did not hear anything. Or actually,
it was right at the park.
If it was in the middle of the day, maybe.
It was at like, so the parade started at 4:30, and then I would say the tree was like 6 o'clock. By the time it was supposed to be 5:30, but everyone's
yesterday?
like, "Yeah, this is yesterday."
I heard nothing. I did not hear no single fireworks. If anything, I heard more stuff on the day of mourning than yesterday. So I heard like, hunting guns. The day of mourning, but nothing yesterday.
The guys blasting random music and shaking the houses somehow. It doesn't make any sense how somehow their music is so loud it literally shakes my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how it's possible. And my mom gets somehow, she starts yelling. She's like, these people are crazy every time. Like they're just jamming out. What if it was Taylor Swift they were listening to? Would you be as mad?
I will host y'all that because my neighbors and I we blast stuff like to the point where you can hear it through the floor. So,
and that's in the same building, but like from the outside.
Oh, okay.
And then your house is like.
Yeah.
Shaking.
Okay,
so someone just drives by. They must. I don't know. It's a little crazy.
Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I personally, since my ears are so broken, I like to have really loud music. Mm-hmm. So other people really can't turn that down. I'm like, okay. So I understand. Maybe they don't. Maybe since they blasted for so loud for so long, their ears are like deteriorated.
Maybe so.
That's because that's what my ear people say. Don't blast your music very loud, Hunter. You'll lose even more hearing. So I think that's my hypothesis is. They've permanently damaged their ears by mistake. And if they haven't yet, they will soon.
Yes.
Sorry, everybody. To constantly clear my throat to keep my podcast voice going in the wintertime. All this heat, the artificial heat, and like the heating inside and whatnot has like messed with my nose, eyes, and throat so bad. They're so
in this
dry.
House or your place?
Anywhere that has. This house is not that bad, especially in the basement. It's not as bad.
No.
But like when I sleep in heat and then wake up, I'm like dying. Like my eyes are all dry, my throat hurts.
Yeah.
And then I just have to drink so much water. I'm like, okay, hydrated again. But now I have to like figure out what to do for the podcast. So much talking with a compromised ear, nose, and throat. We gotta figure that out. All right. So, why do you make art? What inspires you?
I've been making art my entire life. And I feel like what inspires me is a hard question because I feel like everything inspires me. I think the first time I really enjoyed art was just looking at like picture books and just kind of like those children books that don't really have words, but they have pictures that tell the story. And so I really was drawn to them at a really young age. And then we had like such a large library at home from donated books. And as young as maybe 5 through 7 years old, this is something my family historically tells everyone that they meet that is either my friend that like, yeah, Sen had like 3 books in their bag. They're only 7 years old. They just wanted to look busy and just carry that everywhere. And I didn't know how to read then, but I just loved like kind of seeing all the pictures and being able to like see how folks illustrate things and the ways that they make their lines and the curves, the abstractness of it, or even fine art and realism art was really fascinating to me. But I feel like my artwork is more so whimsical, very... I feel like it's a representation of being a self-taught artist. And so I think what inspires me to make art now as an artist is really kind of being a representation for other self-taught artists to show like, hey, you don't have to go to art school. You don't have to do all of these things to be a great artist. It's really just takes commitment and practice and time, and showing them like I could be an example. I can be your living example of what success as a self-taught artist looks like, and essentially building relationships with other artists in the community, other artists nationwide, really is essential to having a successful time as an artist, because I feel like that has been the most crucial thing for me in the last 6 years, is all of the relationships I've made, artistically and professionally, and even casually. All of those things and all those people have played a crucial part in how successful I am, whether it's just giving my name to a large company like Facebook at the time when they were really big back in 2018. And I got to go to their headquarters and do 2 big workshops there, versus to like maybe giving my name to smaller organizations and me getting to teach my workshop to a group of elders, and so it's just like all these really pivotal points to my work, and how much I've done since then really comes down to these relationships I've built. And I didn't mention this earlier, but before I started really showing my work out in the public in 2016, I would say for 4 to 5 years before that, so maybe beginning of 2011, I just started building really close relationships with other artists. So I would go to back home, we would have these Friday markets called First Fridays. And so I would go to these events and build these really close-knit relationships with some of the artists that I really loved, collecting their work. And so that would be a ritual of mine. It's every month I would buy work from them, talk to them, get to know them a little bit more. And now we have 12 plus year friendships, 10 plus years friendships of supporting each other in our work and really building that close relationship. And by the time I was able to share my work and start sharing my work, they were the first ones to buy. They were the first ones to support. They were the first ones to share, because I did that for so many years with them and spent so much money and just took care of them in the ways that I was capable of doing. They were really happy to kind of reciprocate that same effort back to me.
I think a lot of people don't emphasize the relationships within their community, especially for artists, as much as they should.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the most important things, honestly. But I think a lot of artists are shy.
Yeah.
Extremely shy. I run into a lot of extremely shy artists. It's fine, except you don't have to somehow battle out of that and start talking to people randomly, go to random events.
Oh yeah. And I understand the shyness. I feel like the pandemic has caused me to be super introverted, but this was all pre-pandemic, and so we're all out and about and, much more or less, a lot less anxious, socially anxious, than we are now. But yeah, even now I feel like, I'm slowly getting back my groove of how social I used to be. Because then I would go to art shows by myself. I would, do a lot of things by myself. And then I would make 10 friends at the end of the night. Whereas now I'm freaking out, if I'm somewhere alone with no one that I know. It's,
I will say, going to an art event when you know no one is an interesting situation, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
People are usually nice though. They want to talk to people too, especially if it looks like they know everybody. It's probably because they like talking to people. So go ahead and talk to those people. And I also used to doing activities pre-pandemic, by myself. I'd go, but they were wouldn't go somewhere and then make friends. I'd go to the movies by myself and be like, oh, time to watch. I'd call them Hunter Day. So I'd be like, okay, today's Hunter Day, this Wednesday, and then I would just do nothing that I didn't want to do, and then I'd be okay. End the night with a movie.
Nice.
Lots of nice movies back in the day. Okay. Where do you see your art taking you in the next 5 years?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm starting the tour, so I would say the next year, doing more of a Your Legacy tour. But in 5 years, I really hope my work to kind of, I feel like this year has been really lucrative. But I do see myself in all of the aspects that I'm in right now. I do see myself continuing doing art full time, but also I see myself becoming an art mentor and really being like this peer support mentor for artists who were in my position or were in previous positions that I was. So I see myself kind of growing in my art, but also becoming like an art mentor for folks who need assistance with how do I network? How do I do this? How do I do that? In regards to developing a strong social practice or even developing a strong artist narrative or artist statement to describe their own personal work. And that's something that I dabbled in a little bit this year, and that has been really successful for me. Yeah.
Very interesting. Is that where you saw your stuff going, like when you started? Or did you have a different dream?
I think when I first started, I was just more so, I just want to put my name on the map. That was kind of like my thing. I was like, I just want my name on the map. I don't want to be super famous. I don't want to be unknown, but I just want my name on the map. And so I feel like the last 6 years I have been successfully been able to put my name on the map. I think now more so I want for the next 5 years, I'm kind of like things now that I've kind of accomplished everything I wanted. And when I first started, I feel like, okay, what do I want now? What's next? And so I do see like a tour happening, and maybe that's like the workshop with the workbook, I debut the workbook at the same time. I see myself, offering mentorships. I also see myself just growing in my art, seeing where that continues to take me, and if I go even larger scale than I'm at right now. And so I think most importantly, I just kind of want to continue to challenge myself to see like, okay, you can grow in this area, you can grow in this area, or you've done this, so what's next? And so I try to keep an open mind and be receptive to what comes naturally for me, because I learned a lot of stuff this year alone, just doing my art full time. Like I learned I'm a great mentor. I learned I'm a great teacher. Of course, I'm an amazing artist. But these are like 3 things that have been repeated to me all throughout the year. And so I'm like, okay, maybe it's something that I just have to figure out how to blend into one entity, and then, that can be a sustainable, career for me. So we'll see. But yeah, it's exciting.
Where are some of the, well, I guess you mentioned earlier that you had your art shown in France. Mm-hmm. What are some other places you want your art to be shown? Not in America.
Not America. Okay. Definitely France again.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely love just kind of at least somewhere in each different continent, multiple times, but at least once. So definitely Central America, South America, up north, south, east, west, everywhere.
Antarctica? Someone's about to print, put it up?
I would love to do one of the polar bears or the penguins. That'd be really cool. So I think that I'm not shying away from any possibilities. Mm-hmm. So if I can manifest it on this podcast, I'm doing so right now.
Mm-hmm. You write us a note in 10 years. You're like, thanks to Moscow's podcast, I've had my art shown in all seven continents.
Yes.
Across the world.
Yes.
Thank you. And you can give us one piece of art.
Yes.
Of the polar bears. I would like a polar bear print if you get your work shown in Antarctica.
Perfect. I'll send it over.
Please do. Okay, so this is kind of a lengthy question.
Okay.
I want to make sure I don't mess it up. Okay. So, if I mess it up, we're just going to cut the question. Okay, so, from what I can tell, your legacy aims to provide a trauma-informed block printing workshops for all sorts of people. How do you think art helps as a means to improve emotional, physical, and social well-being of the people who attend your workshops? Or necessarily, why does the art help people release
that's
these
a
emotions?
great question. I will first answer on how it helped me, and then how that's guided me through guiding other people. So again, when I mentioned that I was doing block printing for a whole year before I joined the cohort, in that year, I discovered the process of what I apply in your legacy. And so what happened in that year was it was also my first year of therapy, or real therapy. And when I say real therapy, it means me taking it seriously, because I've been to therapy all my life, but this is the first year I actually started taking it seriously. And I was doing lino block printing at the same time, and I was noticing what was happening to me as I was carving these blocks. And so I would come up with the image, I would start drawing it on the block, and then I would start carving, and I would also process everything that I'm going through at that time. And so in those moments, I'm realizing the image I have on the block is what I want to see. Like, for example, it's what I'm manifesting for 5 years, right? The process of beginning to carve is actually removing all of the things that prevent me from achieving that. So removing any imposter syndrome, removing any negative thoughts, removing any sort of justification that tells me I'm not good enough to achieve whatever I want to achieve in 5 years. And so once I'm carving, I'm doing that. I'm releasing, as I'm watching these pieces of linoleum fall off of the block. It's essentially like all of these things that I no longer want to carry are also falling off. And so it becomes this practice of release, and it also becomes like a practice of meditation. And then at the end, when I get the final result of the block and I print it and I see this beautiful image at the end, I'm able to really understand that image as a representation of how I see myself, how I recreated my narrative, how I transformed my own personal healing journey, and the result of that, right? And then I have this pile of shavings next to the print that I have to dispose of, right? And so when we think about therapy and we think about mental health and wellness, it's essentially, we're not removing we are removing some of the symptoms, but we're really dealing on how do we take care of ourselves while dealing with the symptoms. How do we shift our mindset just a little bit so that we're able to function and also be able to really take care of ourselves when we're deep in that mindset. And so the shavings really become this representation of really healing when we think about, okay, we're no longer in those spaces that made us feel small, but those spaces still exist. And so the shavings still exist, right? There's still a physical layer that is still there, whether we dispose of them or not. And so through that whole practice, that whole process of understanding block printing as my own healing process, I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, I found a whole profound love through block printing, using it as a visual form of understanding how I'm healing. And so when I bring that to my workshop, of course, there'll be participants that enter my workshop. I'm like, oh, I'm not good at art. I'm not an artist. I don't draw. What if this comes out terrible? I'm so nervous. And so I welcome those participants, because the whole practice of my workshops is really, this is, of course, beginner friendly, but really this is your story. So we're sharing your story. Your story does not have to be picture perfect. I want you to throw away the idea that art has to be clean and precise lines. I'm not expecting you to make a block print that maybe someone with 20 plus years experience at block printing can make as well. This is really all about you kind of going through that process yourself. So usually with the workshop, I have them go through a quick written reflection in the beginning to kind of release all those thoughts and whatever is coming up in their minds, to just kind of leave it on paper. And then through that, I guide them using whatever they've written down and help dig deeper inside of them. So maybe their final image might not even be related to anything they wrote, but it could be related to something that we talked about in that discovery, digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So for example, Mr. Dennis was part of our group on Friday, and I had asked the question, I had asked them to define, and I always ask all of my participants to define these words, legacy and liberation. That's always the two words I always include. And so he was having such a hard time. He was having a really hard time. He was like, I don't know how to answer this. Like, what? This is hard. And also he was saying, I'm not an artist, so I don't know what to do. And so I went back to him and I was like, okay, let's, I see you wrote down outdoors. I see you wrote down nature. I see you wrote down wildlife. What is something that, how do these three things show up in practice or show up in action for you in your life? And he started telling me stories about how he would watch a nest through his binoculars. And so he created this nest and he would watch all the hatchings and every year. And I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. I really love that. And I love that that was specific to his story, right? To his practice. And so I was able to help him navigate, going through this whole practice of all right, we remove the idea that you can't draw, remove the idea that you can't answer these questions. We go through a dialogue. I help you dig deeper into this dialogue. And we are able to actually create a beautiful image of a bird's nest through a binoculars view.
It is so funny that Uncle Avery, or my Uncle Avery, it's that he always says he's not an artist, but he definitely can create pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, he created this beautiful image, this beautiful print of a binoculars view of the nest and a stand where these two birds were standing next to each other. And so it was really powerful.
Yeah, he used to mention those birds all the time. That nest. I remember one day, a couple years ago, Uncle, if you listen to this podcast, I don't know if he does, but I just remember he always look at these pictures, Hunter. He just every day watch these birds with my binoculars, and they're just in the tree. I mean, that's very interesting, Uncle. I had no idea it was such a thing that he really enjoyed doing every day at the time. But now we kept bringing it up, so it's because he'd have new news about them every time.
Yeah,
that's just so interesting.
Well, yeah, and so in that, right, that practice is his. Mm-hmm. And so that's the whole practice of your legacy, is how do we uncover these stories that we hold within ourselves and that can represent who we are without using words. And so we know now anyone can see it, even people who may not know Mr. Dennis, and they can be like, oh, this person really loves watching birds, and so that's the whole practice, and that's the whole purpose and power to your legacy, is how can I help you guide you in really creating this powerful print that becomes your specific legacy, that becomes your specific evidence of you're here in this moment. And so people in the present, people in the future can look back at it and see a story right there. And another participant back home earlier this year, or earlier in the fall, she was talking to me about her Korean ancestry and how she was first generation immigrant, just like myself. And she didn't really know a lot about her ancestry, but she knew some practices that her family upheld. And she was like, I really want to go back to that. I'm having a really hard time. And so I also assisted her with that. And her block print actually ended up becoming a Korean altar. And some of her practices, of her indigenous practices of, her family building an altar together, making food, having like incense, having certain things on the altar very clean, very polished. And so she was able to create a block print of that visual, you know, and so it's just really beautiful to kind of see people really go through this whole process within themselves. And I think that's something that really sets me apart from other workshops, is that I'm forcing people to go into this deep reflection within themselves. And that's always a hard thing to do, especially because that's what therapy is. Having to do a deep reflection. What does these terms mean to me in action or in practice? And how do I want to show that to others without words, right? Because words can be the hardest thing. I think that's the biggest part of therapy. You have to come up with words. To tell your, you know, to talk about, you know, and at least as a visual artist myself, I feel like visuals are a lot easier to tell someone their story versus using words or language.
That's why I love video so much. Visually, you have to tell stories a lot. It's not easier, but you can.
Yeah.
And then you add words in. Makes everything a lot better. Well, I'm glad I ended up asking the question, because that was a very good answer.
Thank you. Yeah, these are great questions.
Thanks again to do my job. Jeremy won't fire me.
Please don't fire him, Jeremy.
He still might.
Give Mr. Hunter a raise.
Oh, maybe next year. I need to get some. This would be where I would give my ad to the current sponsor of the podcast. This could be your ad right now. The beverage we're drinking on the podcast could be your ad. I'll give you guys a little taste of what it'd be. I'd be like, okay, so let's take a sip of this drink. Oh wow, that's delicious. Now I'm no longer parched, and I can talk for like 4 hours straight. Just 2 sips. So I'm trying to get. Jeremy wants me to get sponsors.
Sponsor a seltzer water. Any seltzer water company sponsor us.
That is like my dream sponsor, is a seltzer company.
I think Jeremy's too.
Yeah, Jeremy loves seltzer. I think Jeremy really loves this brand of seltzer. Like, this is the only type he drinks.
Oh, got it.
I love all seltzer. I make my own seltzer. Got like all sorts of machines.
Oh wow.
All these lemon squeezers and lime things to make my own flavors. Something bizarre about me. If you ask me what freedom is, I'll say a nice bottle of seltzer. That's a joke, but I do love seltzer more than one of my favorite things in the world. Oh, well, I think we've... Okay, well, here's one thing I wanted to ask about. How's your time with the kelp farmers? What did you guys do?
Oh my God, it was amazing. It was amazing. When I got there, I was like, I don't know where the hell I am. But after I found your mom, it was really great. So I got to see the winter kind of version of the kelp farm, because I was explained that there's like a winter process, and then, spring, seasonal. Yeah.
This is the really crazy stuff happens. Like
the
planting stuff.
And so I was actually able to see like all the scrolls of the seedlings of the moss, and it was really cool to see like there was a control group. So now I'm gonna get all nerdy. So now there was like a control group area of their regular process with the kelps, and then there was like a section of more of an experimentation process, much more different process than their usual. And then I got to understand like their water purification process, which was really cool, and how they get water through that. And but mostly I was just before I became I am an artist. I've always been an artist, but when I entered school, I entered as a biology major. So I really, like my first year, I left after my first year, but my first year, I was like amazed with plant biology. Oh my God, I loved plant biology. I love being in the microscopes. I love like looking at the plant cells. And so your mom had pulled out some samples that was like kind of like she wanted to investigate. And so she was like, oh, wait, you have a bio background. Why don't you just, go on the microscope and see what you find. And so it was really cool to kind of put my nerdy bio hat back on, and just really exciting to see the kelp. And so that was one of the prints that I've made, is these two different same kelp, but two different life stages. So right here, you'll see the kelp in the beginning life stages when they are very baby.
Exactly. Yeah. My mom calls it the zygotes.
Yeah, the zygotes. Yeah, the zygote kelps. And then this is when the kelp is actually forming into its grown, more mature life cycle. So it was really beautiful to kind of see like the different variations of the same kelp, which was sugar kelp.
Sugar kelp, yeah.
And so it was really fascinating to see that. And then we got to find out that there are microorganisms that are living in the kelp.
Already? Wow.
Yeah. And so there was like 1 million babies just squirming around everywhere. Got to record a video for your mom to show folks. And inside we did some research, and I was like, okay, let's see if this microorganism is actually beneficial or if it's more so parasitic, which can be a little bit harmful for the kelp. And so in my discovery research, I was able to determine that it was more so beneficial than parasitic. Still parasite, but a beneficial parasite. So that's something that people don't understand, is that sometimes there are parasites that are actually more helpful than harmful. So there's like parasites that benefits their hosts and increase their life, and benefits their life, versus some parasites are kind of like they just take everything from their host. So this was more so microorganism that was very beneficial to the life growth. And as a result, this kelp, the sample that we took from the kelp was growing at a much faster rate than the control group. So that was really cool to see.
That's so interesting. A lot of people don't understand that, like, modern farming is so scientific. You need freaking advanced science degrees. You need to go into STEM just to be able to do anything.
Yeah, and I think the most inspiring thing was finding out that your mom and other members of the Shinnecock kelp farmers are considered citizen scientists, or and so meaning that they're self-taught scientists as well, and not necessarily self-taught. They also have like a team, partner team that helps them.
Green Wave?
Yeah, Green Wave.
Cool. They sent me through the same the thing. But when we first started, we weren't sure who was going to be. I was still living in Philadelphia at the time. Mom was like, "Could you just go to it was on these online Zoom classes in case we need you to just an extra person?" And I just remember staring like, "What the hell are they talking about?" They were going to some extremely advanced stuff. And now they understand it all. Now. I'm like, well, how did you guys just learn to understand this? In like a year, and now you guys grow kelp.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think what's more powerful too is just the medicine of Shinnecock women doing this, right? And so I think that's something that really fascinated me, that I learned about before I arrived here, was, these powerful groups of women are nurturing and giving life to this kelp and really kind of nurturing the Shinnecock Bay again, and how that kind of triples and kind of trickles down to the health of the ocean. And so I just found that really powerful and inspiring to me. And I really wanted to meet them. So they were like one of the 3 options I had of people that I wanted to meet. So it was the Shinnecock kelp farmer, Shane Weeks, or I think it was Shella Bullock. Yeah. So I was like happy with one of my 3 options. I was like, great, this is perfect. And your mom is so sweet. I love her so much.
She's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I have no problems. No qualms with her.
You better not have. You better not have no qualms with my friend.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. She's a scientist, so
Yeah, she's great.
except sometimes she drags me in the water with her at the kelp. It's cold, but that's fine. If you ever come back, you should try to come back.
Please, I will come back.
They've put the plants in already, and then you can actually go in the water with the kelp and like things like they got like mussels in there that
All right, Hunter.
like take out.
I'm gonna have you give me a month's notice. I could buy a month's notice ticket.
It's very cold. It's very cold.
That's fine.
But it is fun. It is. I mean, it's hard work. It's kind of fun. Kind of. If you've never been kelp farming, how are you supposed to know what it's like?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's see. You don't have. Okay, I got 2 questions left for you.
Okay.
We've already hit an hour. All of a sudden.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Time
I look back like 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, only 10 more minutes till we hit the mark, at the least, and then things kind of get out of hand. I like to say. Okay, so is there something that I should have asked you about that I did not?
That's a great question. Oh, you didn't ask me about my work in progress stuff that I did here.
Yes. So, tell us a little about all the work you've done while you've been here.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, somewhere in the podcast between our ramblings, I've done 2 multi-layer prints, here on Mom's house. And so the first print I did was a 4-layer print of, and I could describe it to folks. So it's a green background with ocean waves, dark blue, violet colored ocean waves, with a whale tail fin coming out of the waves. And inside the whale, you see 3 different symbols inside of the whale fin. So you see a symbol of a water balloon. You see a symbol of eyes, kind of like a very clear view of like eyes, eyebrows, and nose. And then the 3rd section symbol is a fishnet. So in my process here, I was doing a lot of research around like the whalers, the history around the Shinnecock whalers, history around like the settler colonization aspect of that too, and the relationships with whales and how they really benefited Shinnecock Nation prior to settler colonization, and how it's kind of transformed after. And so I really wanted to create a whale print, and at the same time, while I'm here, we're also witnessing in real life settler colonialism, genocide, right, and the other side of the world in Palestine. And so something that I had learned about Palestinians as well is that they're also fishermen. They're also, not so much whalers, but they are also skilled fishermen, such as, and very similarly to Shinnecock tribal members, who are also have long generations, multiple generations of fishermen and whalers too. And so I found this really sweet connection to that, and I was like, I just felt called to again give this symbol of a whale fin, and then really connect that back to the phrase the Shinnecock has, which is we are still here. And so really kind of bringing that kind of message back through this image of Palestinians are still here despite going through a genocide. Shinnecock is still here, Shinnecock Nation is still here, despite their own personal genocide as well. And both being fishermen, having this strong connection with the ocean, strong connection with the wildlife in the ocean that really supplements their life through food, through jewelry, through whatever else they've been able to create with their hands. And so I really felt called to do this print to really kind of build that bridge of like, no matter where we are in this world, there's connections that are very similar to our story and their story, and kind of bringing awareness as well of like, this is also happening and colonization is still here.
It was very...
Yeah, so that was one of the bigger connections I've made during my time here. And then the other print I made is the kelp. One of the photos I had taken from the microscope. So it's a print showing the more so adult life cycle of the kelp, and then side by side next to the zygote version of the kelp. So this is still work in progress, but once it's done, I'll mail it back over here. So y'all have one version of it. And then the beaded work I made with Miss Dennis is also work in progress, but I'll be done with it by the end of night. It's actually for the next artist in residence. So I made this for them.
You're starting the cycle.
Yeah, there was a cycle started before I got here of each artist kind of leaving something behind for the next future artist. So I had Dennis made me a dream catcher, and that actually was very much powerful for me because it helped me be able to sleep. Right before I got here, I was having really a lot of trouble sleeping. I had a lot of nightmares and such because another connection was made with the whole Palestinian genocide happening is that my family is actually victims of the civil war that happened in El Salvador. So they came here to the United States in the 80s. And the same people that has their hands in Palestine right now and killing them were the same people that were harming my mother's homeland. And so there's that connection. And it was also around the same time that it started too. So both happened in October, both by the same people. And so I was having a lot of my body and my, ancestors were really reminding me like, we went through this too by the same people. And so what you're feeling is not foreign. This is something that is very familiar for me. Yeah.
Okay, well, for the last and final question of the podcast is, do you have any questions for me now that you've answered 2 hours of questions for yourself?
Yeah. How'd you get started with podcasting? Like, how did you... Oh, and then also, how'd you get started with your videography?
Let's see. Podcast is just kind of an idea that since we had kind of an unlimited amount of guests, that I wouldn't have to find myself. When we were applying for the grant that we won, CRNNY grant we won last year, we all had to come up with like job descriptions for ourselves, like what we'd be doing here.
Yeah. And
the podcast was one thing I thought would be good. Give every artist a chance to say where they want on the podcast, people know about themselves. So that's how that kind of came to be. And I thought back then, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I can talk all the time. But I was so nervous first couple episodes. And then it took me like 6 months to get kind of good at it. Mm-hmm. And now, within the past like 3 months, I'm like, I'm pretty good at this now. So
yeah, you got the hunter voice now.
Yeah, I had the perfect podcast voice now. Always activated. But yeah, and then videography stuff. I don't know. We were kids, like, me and my friends, we made this website. Mm-hmm. We called it KBH Base.
Okay.
And
KBH
Base.
BH.
Yeah, it was like 3 of my friends.
Oh, Kyle, so those are your initials.
Yeah, it was our Kyle, Brandon, and Hunter base. And we were like, okay, we're going to make... This is a pretty advanced website for like second graders, honestly.
Oh my God.
But we made like this nice website. We figured out how to put like a music player inside so you can listen to any music that you wanted to without having to pay for it on iTunes. Mm-hmm. Back when you had to buy music on iTunes. It was like streaming before streaming was a thing. So like people's parents, like we tell everyone in their class, and then they tell their parents like, oh, you can listen to any music you want. They're on this website, but it'd be our website. And then there'd be a tab for like our YouTube videos we'd make. And we would just like write like a little script of like whatever would happen. And then we would record it, and we'd all be like acting and directing and doing whatever all at the same time. And those are always like, I know you're not supposed to say like I'm a bad drawer or whatever. One of my weaknesses is definitely hand created art. Is not as good as my technology assisted art, I guess. I'm better on the computer than I am with this stuff. But I do like making all sorts of art, honestly.
Yeah,
but I'm just better, I'm just more inclined, natural talent wise, to the cameras and editing and stuff. Although that's not really natural talent, just because I've been using technology for like 25 years.
It is talent.
Yeah.
What was your first clip? Your YouTube upload?
It was the first one.
I'll tell you. You tell me yours, and I'll tell you mine.
Let's see. My first upload. It was a movie about. It's like a minute long, and there's a guy. What was his name? I think his name was Johnny. And I was playing Johnny, and I had this mask on, like this old man mask. And we were just like, one of my friends was just like saying random, it was just like in his house, watch TV. And then I like burst through the door, and I have this like airsoft gun. And then he gets up and like says Johnny no or something. And then I shoot him. And then like someone else like comes out the closet and like tackles me or something.
That's so
and
chaotic.
that was the first one. And then then we made this video where we like started cracking open eggs on the snow.
Nice.
That was another. It was like the opposite of the cooking eggs. You're freezing eggs on the snow outside. Yeah, we made like a bunch of weird videos like that. Made like music videos for songs.
I made my first YouTube video, if I remember correctly, was a love letter to my friend.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was like me recording, I think it was like 10 things I love about my friend. It was like me in like my closet, walk-in closet that I made shift into like an office space. So it's me like recording myself in this really bad lighting walk-in closet. So you can't really see my face because the light's like above my head, and so there's just like a shadow overcast on my face, and then you just see me like pulling out random things from like from the side frames, and I don't say anything. I'm just like holding up like a little note card, and then I move.
Oh, you made one
of
those?
And then I grab the item, and then I move, and then I grab another note card, and I don't think I added music in the background.
No music?
No. It was just a cringy, no sound video love letter to my friend. And that was, I think, the first ever YouTube video I've ever made and uploaded. And it was like so embarrassing. It's probably still up in YouTube because I never taken it down. But yeah,
I've taken mine down. For sure. We made paintball war. No, Nerf. We had a lot of war situations on our thing.
Yeah.
And then we had like lip sync songs we'd be singing.
Oh yeah,
things like that.
Lip syncs are great.
We used to make a lot of stupid stuff, and then it slowly developed into like real music videos and stuff like that as I got older. I guess not to say the other videos weren't real. Then one time I tried to be a Let's Player. So I had a bunch of Let's Play video game, like mini clip video games I would find. Cause I didn't have I had a MacBook, so you can't really play games on that thing. But like Flash games you could play. So I would make videos of me playing games on there. Those were the greatest content days. Oh, and I used to make Dragon Ball Z videos, animation. Okay. Stick figure animation, which was something else.
That's great.
Those are fun.
Yeah, the second video I found that
You found it already? Wow.
I apparently uploaded 13 years ago was I live in the city back home, and so we have like a public transit train similar to the LIRR here, but it's a little bit faster, and it doesn't have as much seating. But 13 years ago, 15 years ago, we had like a lot of artists kind of all over the Bay Area. And most of the artists will come and perform inside of the trains while you're heading home. And so this is like a 1:36 video, 36-second video of someone that goes by the name of Abdul Malik. And he's like jamming on his guitar, acoustic guitar and like rapping at the same time. And so that was like something that fascinated me, I guess 13 years ago that I uploaded it. And then many, well, not many, but I would say a few YouTube videos later, it's just me doing my art. That's about it.
Nice. YouTube, back in the day, YouTube was creative ground for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's kind of content now, which is
it's not
crazy.
as fun. It's not as fun.
It's not. People all make the same similar videos. Sometimes when you find original video, sometimes you find original stuff, but you don't get no like. You don't have any Freds running around anymore.
Right.
People like that. Just making.
Well, now they do
videos.
like vlogs.
Yeah.
On
I don't want to
YouTube.
watch a vlog. Really.
I don't mind. I like the time, the really quick vlogs that are like really fast.
The TikToks?
No, they're kind of like TikToks, but they're not. But they're. I like the vlogs that are where people are just moving at a quicker pace.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, where the time speed is a lot faster.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cool. I would one content I try to stay away from at all costs on YouTube now are reaction videos to videos I've already seen. It's crazy. It would be like someone makes a video, someone will react, and then the person will react to the person reacting, and then they'll react. It's just a giant loophole.
Yeah.
And then like family channels where it's like these people are exploiting their family for views, and they're just
crying.
like have all those things. I'm like, these people are serious right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ever get caught making that type of content, of either of those, I'm ending my career.
Yes.
All right, well, I think we're basically done with all of our questions.
Awesome.
So now that we're at the end, it's kind of your opportunity to plug all your social media or websites, give shout outs to any organizations, anything you want to say. The floor is yours. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, shout out to my sponsors that helped me get food during my stay here. So Moss House and then the Bay Area org that funded me as well, sponsored me as well. Also, shout out to Bates, Bay Area American Indian Two-Spirit that also sponsored my trip. Shout out to everyone that donated to my trip. But also, you can follow me on Instagram at Sen Creates Art. And you can find all my stuff there. If we're more personal friends, you can follow me on Facebook. But mostly Instagram is where you can find all the updates of what I'm doing. And yeah, hit me up, y'all, if you want me to come over to your town or your state. I've only been into the West Coast, now New York. But if you want me to bring my workshop, holla at me. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll put some links in the description of the podcast.
Awesome.
Just to let all of our listeners know, do not follow me on Facebook, please, at all costs. No Facebook allowed, personally. No one's ever said follow me on Facebook before, so that's new, first time.
Yeah, we're like close friends. Yeah, we're close.
Yeah, even for close, don't follow me. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Sen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hunter.
Everyone listening, thanks for listening.
Yeah,
thanks, you guys.
Thanks for, if you made it this far, thanks for working and listening through all of our middle conversations between each question.
Yeah, it's part of the fun of the Moss House podcast. It's a good time.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Catch you guys in the next episode, and hope you guys like this one.